Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. A real pleasure to be able to speak to you today. Thanks so much for taking the time. I mean, this show, it's just been a runaway hit, really. I mean, people are saying almost word of mouth in some respects. What do you think it is about this show that's got people so hooked? It seems to be this, it's kind of got the tropes of a classic spy thriller, but the fact that we're in this kind of group of misfits, in this drab building, and this incredibly razor sharp dialogue that runs through the whole thing, there's just something brilliant about it, the makeup of the show. So what was the appeal for you?
Oh, I'd known about the show from the beginning because a friend of mine, Moira Banks, was writing on the very first series, and I was aware of it all developing. And Will Smith I'd worked with in the past as well on the thick of it, so I knew he was leading an amazing team, and I knew the subject was great. And then we watched it out of loyalty to our friends on the very first night. And my husband and I just went, oh my God, this is the most amazing show. So we were just massive fans for 3 seasons. And then I couldn't believe it when I was asked to join the cast. Wow.
Tell us about Moira, queen of the database. She sort of comes in a bit of a busybody, ruffles a few feathers, not least with Jackson Lamb. How did you see her as a character? What did you like about playing her?
She is an administrator to the queens of the database. She herself is simply a minion, as it were, amongst the luminaries at the park. And I think she sees herself in that light. She sees herself as an enabler, but she's actually very pleased with herself, shall we say, that she does think secretly that she is probably more important than those queens, because she's the one who allows it all to happen. And that's the attitude that she ends up in Slough House with just seeing herself as superior, I think, and as if it's all a bit icky and she just really doesn't want to be there. But since she is there, she's going to put on a marigolds and get it all sorted.
I think, and the other phenomenal thing about the show is this ensemble cast. I mean, there are just so many different characters, but you just sort of get so invested in each of them. But maybe particularly working opposite Gary Oldman, how did you find those scenes? And he just seems to nail, I guess the tone of the show emanates quite a lot from his character, so caustic, yet underneath it all, you can tell he actually does really care about his group of misfits.
He does care, yeah, and we care about him, I think. And I think that's the bit he probably doesn't quite believe, that he's sort of put himself beyond the pale, really. But I think the secret to the show is that the audience cares about him. We want him to be okay. And we know that at some level, for all the amount of times that he tells you that he's not invested, doesn't care, couldn't give a shit, he still is the one that is going to bring the brains to sort out the problem. And I think you see that the more seasons you see, the more he does that, the more he's the thinker and the genius, as well as somebody who obviously had this incredible history within the park. So I think he's lovable, despite his best efforts. I think we care about him, and that's what makes the show work. Because if you didn't care about that character, of course we care about River, because he's young and he's made mistakes, and we can all relate to that. But we can't relate to being Jackson Lamb, and at the same time we want to put our arms around him and maybe give him a good bath and a scrub behind his ears.
And of course, you're no stranger to comedy, not least with, the thick of it. And I don't know how much of that was being channeled slightly here again, but, did you have some favorite lines? I mean, even the opening, oh, is there a leak? No, I'm just being waterboarded. Like, do you love that kind of dark humor? And what is it like with that on set?
It's really succinct lines, aren't they? The dialogue is so brilliantly, there's not a syllable that's not in the right place. Rhythmically, and just the content of it is so modern. It's so, you see our world reflected in it so well. I think comedy is something people have to work at, and that's what you get in this show, is the huge number of people at the top of their game who are brilliant at everything they do. I mean, that goes throughout. That's in production design, it's in cinematography, it's every aspect of the show is people at the top of their game. And so the dense way that kind of the concentration of that means that the comedy is just hits the mark all the time. That's very rare. That's very rare. You can't legislate for it. You can't buy it. It just comes about from a lot of very talented people getting together and working extremely hard. And I can vouch for that. They really do put so much into everything, every aspect of the show. And it's led by Will's brilliant mind and his extremely, it's not that it's an eccentric sense of humor, but it's always just a couple of millimeters to the left of where you might imagine anybody else would go. I think for me, that's what makes it so ticklishly funny.
And you've done such a range of roles, you know, he's an award-winning turn in After Love, very recently in a very royal scandal, and I understand you've got Riot Women coming up. So, you know, how do you pick your roles these days, and what can you sort of maybe trail about that new project coming up?
Riot Women, yeah, Riot Women is going to be good. I think. I mean, you shouldn't say that, should you? Because there's nothing is guaranteed, and nobody knows anything. But it feels good. And Sally Wainwright is a brilliant writer, like Will. And you just put yourself in the hands of a great writer, and you try and make sure you haven't missed any of the beats that they're wanting you to kind of hit. Yeah, it's been tremendous fun, that, and I've been very lucky. I don't choose these things; they choose me, and I tend to say yes, thank you very much. I'm delighted to be part of your world, and I really I love my work. I love going to work. I'd be lost without that. I'm so lucky to be surrounded by really interesting people all the time. It's very stimulating and a great way of life, really.
Thank you so much for sharing all that with me. And I can't wait for everyone else who hasn't blasted through Slow Horses season 4 to watch it. And best of luck, of course, with future projects. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Lovely to see you.